Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Andrew Stott, I'm the Empire of Stomaria, and today is the very first video of our brand new questions and answers series. So in a previous video, I put out the question out there. What do you want to know about the Empire of Stomaria? What do you want to know about me? Ask away. And we've had, as I expected, about, half a dozen or more questions. And I want to go through each of those questions and answer them in this video. But before I do, if you had any questions before or after this video, then please feel free to comment them down below and I will make another video, another questions and answers video using the questions that I'm asked in the comment section of this video. And I think that's how we're going to do it as we're going to roll along, at least until it becomes so unpopular that there's only one or two questions on there, then I probably won't bother. But, like I said, if we can get half a dozen or more questions, then, I'll keep making the videos as long as people want to keep asking those questions. But with that out of the way, let's get started. So my thoughts on virtual micronations, I made a video about this before when it came to secessionist versus simulationist, fantasy versus realist. Again, virtual micronations or virtual nations are, I'd put them in the same category. If they define themselves as a micronation, let them. It's fine. You don't need to have an opinion on it. You just need to decide what it is that you are looking to do, what you want to do with your micronation, what your plans are, what your objectives are, what your values are, and, align yourselves with micronations that are like yours. You don't have to have an opinion on every micronation or every type of micronation. You don't have to try to, pigeonhole or categorize each micronation and then decide whether or not you want to affiliate with any or all of them. It's really just not worth your time. So the best thing you can do is not worry about what other micronations are doing or whether or not other entities describe themselves as micronations or not. Just get on with developing your own micronation or look to align with micronations that share your own values and objectives. Housing is really not something that is top of our priority list. That's not the reason that we're purchasing land. The reason we're purchasing land is to promote our values and objectives, particularly when it comes to energy or agriculture or environmentalism, things like that, things that we can actually actively promote. So when we have land to utilize, then you can actually turn our values and objectives into reality. And as we're trying to develop a community that is more self-reliant, that has, where we can build an internal trading network between, other micronationalists within Stomaria and other micronations outside of Stomaria. Having private freehold land is necessary for that. But in terms of building dwellings on there, the land, that's, it's not out of the question in the future. It's something eventually I would like to see, but it would be for a very select few of the most dedicated Stomarians to actually take that step. In terms of the Patreon pledges, I mean, this is why I get a bit confused with Micronations, because I have had this in the past where people have said, oh, what, you're charging for membership, but you don't even, those citizens don't even have the right to residency. And I just have to scratch my head sometimes because, just doing some basic math, we currently charge £2.50 a month for membership of the Empire of Stomaria to become a citizen of the Empire of Stomaria. Over the course of a year, that's £30. Over the course of 50 years, that's what, £1,500? How many houses do you think I can build with £1,500 over the course of 50 years? I mean, I don't think it is unreasonable to deny someone residency for that kind of financial contribution. When houses and those sorts of structures are built, legally and above board in conjunction with Micronational law and legal requirements, as everything we do is, it's not going to be based on, whether or not you've been a citizen for 50 years or not, necessarily, because if you're just relying on those contributions to be your ticket into a free home, I think you're going to be sorely disappointed, because that's not what Stomaria is about. Stomaria is about building a community, a real-world community, but that doesn't necessarily mean that everyone has to congregate and live on the same little plot of land, and it's certainly not feasible or realistic to expect that. So, I hope that answers that particular question. I quite like MicroCon, I'm not going to lie. I think it's quite a good idea. It's a good opportunity for Micronations to meet face-to-face and sort of build a real-world friendship and, connect with other Micronations in a meaningful way. It's something that we always strive to do. It's certainly something that for a long time was the bare minimum requirement to have a formal affiliation with the Empire of Stomaria, was to have a face-to-face interaction. We have since lessened the importance of that particular threshold, because there are Micronations that do align with us, that have the same sort of objectives and, can offer mutual benefit, but are not necessarily Micronations we can meet face-to-face. Or more specifically, the leaders of those Micronations aren't someone that we can meet face-to-face. But in terms of whether or not I'd ever attend MicroCon, I find that quite unlikely in the near future, at the very least. I mean, I can't speak for, 5, 10, 15 years down the line, but MicroCon is, as I understand it, typically held in the United States. And obviously at the moment, with the pandemic and all the rest of it, still being which way is it going to go? But also the fact that the sheer cost of taking myself and my family and my just under 2-year-old daughter with me to a Micronational event, to MicroCon, I just don't think it's in the cards in the immediate future. Maybe if there was one hosted in the British Isles somewhere, somewhere on the mainland, I would certainly consider it. But again, while I do think it's nice for Micronations to meet face to face, to build that friendship, to build those connections, in terms of whether or not you're asking whether or not I'd formally affiliate with Micronations that I met at MicroCon, that's less likely, because most Micronations aren't necessarily doing what we're doing. So if they don't add value, if there's not mutual benefit, then just meeting face to face is not enough. But in terms of just attending something like MicroCon, if not MicroCon itself, I'm definitely open to the idea. You see, that's really actually a good question, and it is something that I don't think anyone's actually ever asked me, but it is something that I have thought about myself. And I think the answer really depends on when we realise that if Eleanor didn't want to become the Empress of Stomaria, at what point do we know that? So, for instance, if it was a case of, Eleanor's 25, 30 years old, and she comes to me and says, Dad, I'm really not feeling it. I don't really want to continue the Empire of Stomaria when you're no longer here. I'm sorry to disappoint you, blah, blah, blah. If that was the case, then we would have to look for someone else to run the micronation, to govern the micronation, to become the next emperor or empress. More than likely, it would be a member of my family. If not, then it would certainly, we would certainly look towards members of the Stomarian nobility to take the helms. But it's a bit easier if I know in advance, in the sense that all the land, for example, all the private territory, private freehold territory that we acquire, obviously that would transfer to Eleanor, where she'd become the next empress. But if she didn't want to become the next empress, then you know, we could segregate the land that has been accumulated for Stomaria and you know, maybe put it into a trust or something for the next person to take over, or that person would simply just take it over as private freehold land in their name. You know, be it my brother or a nephew or a cousin or whoever else, or it depends at the time who is available and who would be willing to do it. I think the issue becomes a little bit more complicated is like what happened, for example, with the Principality of the Hutt River, or Principality of Hutt River, where there was an orderly transition of power. You know, I feel bad now, I forget the name of the chap that passed away, but the former head of the Principality of Hutt River, he actually passed on his responsibilities to his children, and while he was still alive, I think. And then when he passed, they kept it going for a little bit, and then when the pandemic hit, along with the sort of pressure from the Australian government, they were forced to effectively dissolve the Micronation at that point. So in my own situation, in our own situation, if, for example, I passed away and Eleanor did take the helm and became the Empress of Stomaria, and she decided that she no longer wanted to be the Empress of Stomaria in 5 years into it, long after I'm gone, then it really is, the ball would really be in her court, in the sense that if she wanted to, there would be nothing to stop her from just saying the Micronation no longer exists, thanks very much, that's all, folks. She would be well within her right to do that, because again, it's all private freehold land that is owned by the imperial family. But I would hope that she wouldn't do that. But again, there wouldn't be anything I could necessarily do at that point to stop her, haunt her dreams or something. But aside from that, it was, it would really be up to her. So again, I think the answer really depends on at what point we realise that's not, that, Eleanor wouldn't want to govern the Micronation. Well, in terms of what we can buy with, or what people can buy with silver Stomarian status, is, well, the short answer is not very much at this time. The Stomarian status are designed to be a medium of exchange between Micronations and Micronationalists within Stomaria, but that obviously requires those Micronations to have something to exchange with. So, we're placing a lot of focus on the Kingdom of Wayward, not only because they're quite close proximity to where I reside, where the imperial family resides, but also because they have developed what you would call a micronational economy, in the sense that they do have livestock, they do have fruits and vegetables, an agrarian economy, they have resources there that we can utilize. And I suppose I think the short answer would be eventually the exchanging of, as I said, fruits, vegetables, livestock, eggs, logs, that sort of thing. Those will be things that can be exchanged and will be exchangeable within Stomaria for Stomarian status. Again, in terms of, I say again, I'm pretty sure I've answered this some time ago, but in terms of national sports, in terms of educational systems and all the rest of it, that's not really what we're looking to worry about. We're not striving for that. We're not a genuine nation. We're a micronation with a very specific set of ideals, a specific set of values and objectives in mind. And things like setting up an educational system or a national sports team or something, that's not really a factor in what we're trying to do. I mean, it depends. I mean, I have made a video about naming your micronation. It was the first video we did for our How to Make a Micronation series, so feel free to go and have a look at that if you want. Personally, I think micronations, the ones with the best names, are ones that aren't named necessarily after the founders or the geographic location or anything like that. I think the best names are from, trying to trying to discover what the inspiration for your micronation was or is, and then trying to find a way to name it in that way. I mean, that's how the Empire of Stomaria came up with its name. Again, I have made a video about this before, about how Stomaria was named. It was actually named after the statement of a citizen in an RTS game called Empire Earth. When you gave them the command, they said Stoma. And again, there's a bit of a long-winded history, but the long and short of it is that the Empire of Stomaria, the spark, the catalyst for the inspiration of the Empire of Stomaria, was an RTS game, a real-time strategy game, some 20 years ago. So that's where the inspiration for the Empire of Stomaria comes from, and that's where the names comes from. I think there is a bit of confusion sometimes, because people assume that because that my name is Andrew Stott, Stomaria comes from that, but it doesn't. It's just a coincidence that it does. But in terms of Philland, is your name Phil? Is the founder's name Phil? I mean, if that's what you're going for, then yeah, I mean, the name is really entirely up to you. As long as you're happy with it, that's all that really matters. As long as it means something to you, as long as it's something that you think is unique, is going to stand the test of time, and isn't going to have to be changed later on, then do that. But again, it's really personal preference. Same with the flag, it's personal preference as to what you want to name your micronation as. But if you are worried about what other people's perception of your micronation might be if you name it after the founder or someone's name, like, I don't know, Matthewtopia or Gregville or something. I mean, people might think that's a little bit funny and naff and a bit silly. So if that's not the vibe you're going for, then maybe consider something else. But otherwise, yeah, just do it however you want. Well, these are all the questions that I'm going to answer in this particular video, but if you did want to ask any further questions that you wanted me to answer in the future video, then again, please feel free to do so in the comment section below, and I will review and answer those in a future video. Again, I won't answer these particular questions in this video because I'll answer them in the actual I'll answer them in the next video, so please don't take offense if you don't hear a reply from me if you're commenting on this particular video. That was a bit of a long-winded way to say it, wasn't it? Anyway, if you would like to become part of the Sumerian community, please feel free to consider becoming a citizen through our Patreon campaign, the link of which I shall leave in the description below as always. But otherwise, if you enjoyed this video, please feel free to give it a like, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we'll catch you in the next one.